Supreme Court directs the centre to frame guidelines to pay ex gratia to families of those who died due to COVID-19. It has dismissed union government's plea that no such ex gratia can be paid. This is the latest information coming in, where the Supreme Court has directed the centre to frame guidelines based on which ex gratia will be paid to families whose family members and relatives have died due to COVID-19. Meenakshi joining us with more information on this. So Meenakshi, we are given to understand that the National Authority under the Disaster Management Act will now be activated to determine the process of what kind of amount can be sanctioned as ex gratia. Tell us more about what the Supreme Court has directed the centre in this regard.
Well, a very significant ruling coming in from the Supreme Court, where clearly the Supreme Court has found a big lacuna for the National Disaster Management Authority to have not, complied with already, which is why the Supreme Court is not passing any direct orders to the central government, but instead, like you rightly mentioned, it is saying that the National Disaster Management Authority is liable to frame guidelines for a minimum payment of ex gratia compensation for COVID deaths, and it has directed forthwith guidelines to be put in place within the next 6 months. So that's a very, very significant key ruling being passed by the Supreme Court on a plea which was seeking 4 lakhs ex gratia compensation for the families of the deceased who died on account of COVID-19 virus. Furthermore, we are bringing some pertinent observations from the Supreme Court, and I quote, "A National Disaster Management Authority is statutorily mandated to provide minimum standards of relief, including ex gratia to COVID-19 victims." That is one key observation Supreme Court is making. And then it goes on to add, and I quote, "By not providing ex gratia amount, the NDMA has failed in discharging its statutory duty," unquote. So big words are coming from the Supreme Court now, making it mandatory for the NDMA to frame guidelines for the payment of ex gratia for COVID-19 deaths, which thus far the NDMA, while the centre had invoked NDMA in several aspects of management of COVID, why would financial compensation not fall within the purview of NDMA? That is what has brought about this order of the Supreme Court, and specific directions now coming from the top court to frame guidelines for payment of minimum ex gratia. The amount has been left to the discretion of the NDMA to be ascertained by the NDMA. But the fact that there was zero compensation amount under the National Disaster Management Authority provision, which was invoked by the central government, is why the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court on this issue has been invoked. And now, by orders of the Supreme Court, guidelines have to be framed with regard to this by the NDMA in the next 6 months' time. Afrida.
All right, 6 months' time is the deadline then set for framing of new guidelines for granting ex gratia to COVID-affected families. Thanks for joining us with the details on this, Meenakshi.